conference. We also give out bibliographies, you know, of local history and Tennessee history, so that people who want to do some work on their church or their personal history or family history or local history can have some resources that they can refer to get started. This year the conference will, as usual, have a series of papers. There will be a paper on women in the Negro Street boycott of 1905, 1907, where Nashvillians, African Americans, formed their own streetcar company and operated electric streetcars for a couple of years as their protest against the new Jim Crow law that was passed by the state of Tennessee in 1905. There'll also be a presentation by Dorothy Granberry, who is a professor of psychology at Tennessee State University, on disenfranchisement of African Americans in Haywood County, Tennessee. And Haywood County is over in West Tennessee. Along with Fayette County, were the only two predominantly black counties in the state of Tennessee. And one of them, I think, is still predominantly African American. But there's a good story there about how African Americans, despite the fact that they were the majority in Haywood County and Fayette County, could not and were not allowed to vote until the protest of 1959 to 1960-61. And the John F. Kennedy administration came in and did some things. And in fact, Haywood County and Fayette County led to the 1965 Voting Rights Act that was passed by the United States Congress. So there's a good story there, and tent cities, you know, had to be erected for those African American tenant farmers who were pushed off of the farms by the landowners who owned the majority of the land, though they were the minority of people in that county, in those two counties. In fact, my maternal side is from Fayette County, and so I'm a little familiar with it, though I've done not as much research on the topic as Granberry, who's going to make this presentation at the conference. There will be a presentation of photographs by Rick Warwick, and it's going to be called Williamson County in Black and White, where he's taken a lot of photographs, and he has some interesting photographs that are going to be presented that will sort of give people a flavor of the history of African Americans through photographs in the Williamson County. That county at one time was 42% African American, and at the top of the county it was heavily, in fact, predominantly African American, especially like Brentwood was predominantly African American. And now you can hardly tell it because there are probably only about 2 or 3 African American churches and institutions that are left in Brentwood, but Brentwood was probably 70–75% African American. So that'll be an interesting presentation, I think. And African American hairstyles is going to be presented, a history of the Tennessee Beauticians Association by one of our leading beauticians in North Nashville, Edna S. Page. And we think that's going to be interesting because...
A great piece of culture.
Yeah, most people don't know, you know, why African Americans have all these different hairstyles, especially females, and how important beauty shops and barber shops have been in the African American community's culture and its history. In fact, they have been places where you get a lot of your communications, you know, the grapevine, where you get a lot of the local news in the beauty shops and the barber shops. So that's going to be very interesting. And then for our cultural musical presentation, going to be Fisk University's Jazz Ensemble. This year is going to be playing at the conference just after the lunch hour. We'll have a big lunch for everybody, and we come back, we'll have the the Fisk University Jazz Ensemble, and then we'll have a presentation on William Edmondson, the great African-American
sculptor. And let me interrupt you here, Dr. Lovett, for our first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this short commercial break.